having experienced death. So I think that that was another reason as well, that since I never felt uncomfortable talking about it, the people that I was with never felt uncomfortable, because that's the reality of life. That's
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and this space is a place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they're connected together. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have Natalie Lin. She is the founder of 3 Lee Publishing. She also is a children's book author, and she also has her own podcast show, the Better Your Business Show. So, welcome so much, Natalie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
So, Natalie Lin, let's learn all about your life journey. So what were some of your dreams and goals and, kind of some of your, childhood aspirations?
I was always very money motivated. Even as a young child, I actually had a steady income from 13 up,
Oh,
because
wow.
honestly, the truth was, I just kept getting in trouble. So my mom made me go to work with her. I got paid to be there at one point. Making money was the only thing that was keeping me from exploring. I didn't even see it as getting in trouble. I saw it as kind of just exploring and being curious about the world, right? So that was kind of how my first job started. Was I got to work with my mother, and I actually worked 2 jobs with her. In the mornings, we went to a hotel, and I had to make beds and clean bathrooms. So
Oh,
that was fun.
wow.
Yeah, that was I'm 13 years old, so that was definitely an experience. And then the second one was I was a prep cook with her. So she was a chef in a restaurant, and I got to go and be the prep cook. And then as I got a little bit older, I went into waitressing at the restaurant where she was the chef. So that
Oh,
was a lot of fun.
wow. Yeah, that's cool. So, like,
Yeah.
what were some of the thoughts or things going on when you're 13 and you're in these you're cleaning with your mom? Like, what were your friends talking about? Like, did they, I guess, like, paint the picture for me?
Where my mom lived, it was kind of a small town, so it was normal to everyone in the town. You kind of just did your things around the town. Very, very small community. I don't know how many people are there, but it was only a 2.5 mile long town in Montana, is where she lived. So my friends here in California all just more what they saw was Natalie gets to go to Montana, ride horses, go hiking, go fishing, and she always comes home with money. That was kind of more their perspective of it. So they more thought it was cool. Um, and what I was doing up there was just normal. That's how it was there. In Montana, you got your driver's license at 14. They were working on the farms there as small children. So, it was just the norm.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I can't even imagine living in such a small town. I'm always used to living in bigger suburbs. So what was that
Yes.
like outside of work, like in your day to day? Like, I guess, how many siblings did you have? Like, what was it like growing up?
So with my mother, I was an only child. So when I would go
Mm.
visit her, it was just me. Um, and oddly enough, for it being such a small town, there was always a million things to do, because there was always something to go explore, or um, someone had a horse I could go jump on the back of, and we'd go through Yellowstone Park, or, we could go fishing or camping. So I never felt bored. Actually, I felt more bored in the suburbs. And I think part of that was because I didn't have as much freedom in the suburbs. There, we couldn't, all you could really go to was through the forest, I guess, for the most part. In Yellowstone, you couldn't, it's not like being in the suburbs. So I definitely had more freedom, and I found it to be more fun, for sure.
Mm. Okay.
So yeah, but then when I come back to California, I was the oldest of 4 siblings, and I was raised by my dad and my stepmom. So I had, 3 younger siblings, my brother 7 years, and my sisters 9 and 10 years. So there was a little bit of an age gap, but you know, it really didn't matter to us. They're my siblings. They, got on my nerves like everybody else, and it never seemed weird, even with
Yeah.
the age gap. I never looked at them from that perspective. It took me a long time to really realize, wow, there's a big age gap between us. I just never looked at them that way. So we
Yeah.
would have a lot of fun.
So you would describe your childhood memories as like happy, loving, exploration,
Yeah, I
being
would say
free.
For the most part, I definitely did not. I would say I was probably a child that wasn't very easy to deal with for my dad and my stepmom. My mom, I was definitely much easier because I think your mom just understands you a little bit better by nature.
Mhm.
She understood my need for freedom, where here in California, I just didn't have that as much. So
Mhm.
yeah, so actually I ended up doing ROP in high school here so that I could work even in California. So I got my license 15 and a half, and I was working at a pizza place, and I actually had, at the time we would get credits for high school for doing ROP. I don't know
Mm.
if they had that back in your day, Jessica, but that's how it used to be. We got D's and F's then too, but we used to do ROP. And so my senior year of high school, I only had to take one class to graduate. So I had zero period at office aid class for zero period, and I didn't even really have to go to school my senior year because I liked to earn money. I liked to work.
Yeah. Okay.
It,
All
it
right.
Part of how that I think wasn't the best caveat for me is it made me not see a need for school. I thought, what do I have to go to school for? I already know how to make money. Isn't that why I'm going to school? So that was a thing.
Hmm. That was literally about to be my next question, because since you're focused on making money, you would think that that would naturally correlate with, career planning or something like that, and wanting to pursue college. So yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit more. Like, how did you transition from, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So there's two things to that is out of my circle of friends, which you really probably shouldn't be the highest income earner out of your circle of friends, but I was. And part of the difference of that is because I was waitressing and I was getting tips. So you don't have to pay taxes on that money. I was just making a lot more money than my friends that had master's degrees, some of them. And
Mm.
so if I had to compare it, I was like, now, what happened is I got pregnant right before my 20th birthday. I became a single mom at 20. So that's when I thought, okay, maybe I should get a career. Prior to that, I just was hustling, really. And so I went to school. I became a medical assistant, graduated second in my class. It was interesting. I liked giving people shots. I liked taking blood, but really that was as far as it got. And they didn't make as much money as I needed to make, was the truth.
Mm.
So that year that I was in school, my son was being raised in daycare. So I had to go, do I want the next? I mean, he got potty trained, taken off the bottle in daycare, the whole
Oh
shebang.
wow.
My sister's like, man, he was potty trained so easy. How did you potty train him so easy? And I said, because I didn't. Daycare potty trained him. And
Mm.
so um, I didn't want the next 4 years of my life to be like that. I knew I had to do something different. And that was when I fell into entrepreneurship because one of the things that I learned, part of the challenge I was having was because I was a server, servers have a self-employed mentality.
Mm.
They don't have a salary or hourly mentality because we're not making very much money there. We go in there, we're
Mm.
working for tips. So that was I never could work another job because if I couldn't be there to hustle, I couldn't make enough money was just what kept going on in my head. And that's why I kept going back to that. And so that's what made me fall into entrepreneurship. Okay, well, how can I take this to the next level for me?
Hmm.
And that's how I got into financial planning.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's so interesting. And the reason why I say that's so interesting was because, like, when I was growing up in my teenage years and you're trying to get a job, I was so, I avoided waitressing because I was scared. I was scared of it. I was scared of the customers. I was scared of, what if I drop somebody's food, or, I always liked the concept of tips. But I just like couldn't get into it. And so as a result, like, I focused on, the corporate, like, career planning, all this stuff. But now in my life, I find that I kind of handcuffed myself a little bit with that comfort zone bubble,
Mm.
you know? So
Of continuing to go, of being a student.
I would say, like, being so hooked on the corporate
Mm.
as
Mm.
a pathway for building my life.
I can understand that. I mean, we're bred for that, right? We're bred for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting now that I've been an entrepreneur 20 years. I can't relate to that mentality at all. But the beginning of my journey was 100% working on still shifting a mentality to a business owner. And I really think that's some of the hardest work I've ever had to go through, because you have, since you were born until you're 18, conditioning of this routine of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and going to school. And then you have to
Yeah.
shift from that, and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Let's dive into that mentality shift. You know, a lot of people are always talking about mindset, shifting your mindset. You need to change how you look at yourself. But what does that really mean? So what did that process look like when you were transitioning from being a waitress to becoming a financial planner?
So there was a lot of things, really. I think the biggest thing is identity, right? The biggest, there's that quote, the strongest force in the human spirit is to remain consistent with our identity, right? So even though I was going into financial services, I was doing okay at it, I was making money at it, I was able to do it part time, my identity was still in waitressing. So I was kind of always having that incongruency. So that was part of it. So sometimes the right opportunity could be there and I wouldn't see it because my identity wasn't there for it, or I just was afraid of it. Frankly, it
Mm.
was just, I didn't think I was ready. So that was one challenge. Second challenge is obviously going into entrepreneurship, you need to have the right habits and behaviors. And, any of us that are clocking in and clocking out, well, it's real easy to be disciplined when we're clocking in and clocking out and you'll get fired. But when no one can fire you, it's not as easy. You can all of a sudden think of a million things to do. All of a sudden you notice how dirty your baseboards are. I mean, true story, right? It's like, well, wait, the baseboards are dirty, right? I can't go. But if you had a job, it wouldn't matter if the baseboards were dirty. So that would be one of my biggest things to anybody that's watching the show or hearing the show would be, run your business like you're an employee, like you're going to get fired. You're your best employee. You're Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at least. If you don't clock in and clock out, you're fired. Have that mentality going in, because that's the only way to build the right habits and behaviors for yourself. Look at yourself as an employee of your business. That would be the first thing. Second thing, so when I was kind of in the heyday of my career in financial services, I had about 35 active agents working for me, and everyone did well, made money. I'm really proud of them. And I would say one of the biggest things that I learned through that is to uh, be approachable in your leadership. If you're going to run an organization, I think there were times where I just was really immature. And I think that if my team they were settling for me, I think because they were making money. I think I just could have been a better leader to them in general. But I had to go through my own growing pains as well, right?
Right.
And then also putting people first. There are times where we just have to fall on our sword and take responsibility, even if maybe it wasn't our fault, or even sometimes it is our fault, right? But we have to fall on our sword and take responsibility, take ego out of it. It's the only way I really feel like you're going to have a successful business, if you have a great relationship and great communication with those that are around you.
Hmm.
And make sure you know
Mm-hmm.
how to make money. Make money in your business. Business is based on results. When my friend Joe Ingram always says that. It's not relationships, it's results. I don't care if you
That
like
is
me.
true. That is true. And it's like you have a competitive advantage because your mindset was always about how do I
It
make
was.
money?
It was. Yes. And I know you and I had talked a little bit kind of before we got on, how that was a bit of a disadvantage to me, though. I'll be honest with you, as I've gotten older, is it's taken me a little while to learn to slow down and stop and smell the roses. I
Hmm.
thought it was always it turned into let's just always work.
Hmm. Okay. So stop and smell the roses. Would you say celebrating your accomplishments or taking time off?
I would say both, but I would say probably taking time off more. Taking
Hmm.
time for you, putting you first, putting the things that you want first. I think I put business first too much. I definitely put it too far in front of my health, that's for sure. Um,
Hmm.
you can always make money. If you know how to make money, you can always make money. Know that. So, you prioritize, have your priorities in the right place. That's so important. That's so important to have your priorities in the right place.
Mm-hmm. So when you say that, you were just going, and it impacted your health, how many hours a week were you working?
Well, I was working part time for the first like 7 years. So I'm a single mom working full time as a waitress. And really, I was still running a financial services company full time. I was still doing 80 hours a week for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
was definitely in the hustle culture. And I'll tell you something that I learned from that. And I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this being a female, Jessica, is being in financial services, it was predominantly men and predominantly men who are married. So the
Hmm.
hustles for me should have been different. I didn't know better. That's something I learned later. But when they're talking about what do I have to do to succeed, I'm really living my life like a man who's married, right? And I should have just made different choices, I think.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I really feel like it's whatever you want it to be, you know? So if you want to make $10,000 a month but have total freedom of time to be with your family, then you won. Like you won, you know? We make it all into these other things of how it's supposed to be, I think, or at least I did this, or how it looks on TV, or do I even really want to win bad if I'm not only sleeping 4 hours a night? We get all these things put in our head of what we think it's supposed to look like. The only person who decides what it looks like is us,
Yes, that's true.
right? So what do you want it to look like? I mean, I was thinking about these I want to say younger girls, but I don't even know if it's all younger girls that want to be like celebrities like Khloe Kardashian or Kim Kardashian. And I'm like, do you really though? Like, do you really like, you know how many hours they sleep a night? Do you know how many hours a day they work out and are ripped apart? Like Kim was kidnapped at gunpoint. You know what I mean? It's
True.
like, do you really want to have those types of experiences in your life? You know what I mean? Like, I know for me, I'm not going to work out 3 hours a day. It's just never going to happen. Are
Hmm.
you going to be disciplined? And the reality is, for most of us, the answer is no. That's why they're at where they're at, right? Just play your game, stay in your lane, and play your game.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. But at the same time, though, it's I'm assuming, like, so what year was this when you were working 8 hours a week? Because that also puts things into context as well.
Um, so it's been a while. I mean, I still worked hard, but I wasn't working two jobs. So about 7 years into my career. So this was probably 2011.
2011. Okay. So even during that time, like, there wasn't that much, information out there on what it really means to build your dream life. So it's like
That
you
is
have
true.
you were working like a man, but at the same time, like, what was your other exposure? What were some other?
That's so true. That is very true. Technology wasn't it was it is. There weren't as many women that were doing what they're doing these days for sure. So that's very true. Good
Yeah.
perspective. I like that. Thank you, Jessica.
Because when you look back, it's always like, oh yeah, I should have did this, I should have did that. But we have our life experiences for whatever reason, and who knows, sometimes you go through these really tough periods, but it builds some type of characteristic that you don't really know that you need as you're going through that time. But then later on, you're like, wow, I didn't even know I needed this type of part of myself that I developed so long ago.
Mm.
At least that's
It's
what I
for
find for me.
that's for that's I mean that's 100% for sure. 100% for sure. Because really at that time too, I worked with an organization where we would put 50,000 people the world were of the fabulous minds in the world in a room, and I'd be saturated with their wisdom. And I did need that. And I needed a lot of discipline for sure. I'm extremely disciplined now. My mom's always like, what happened to you? My stepmom, what happened to you? You are not this kid that I, used to hide all her clothes under her bed in the back of her closet. Now I'm very minimalistic, everything. Right? Who are you? But I've just worked on that discipline, gone through that. It helped me establish the habits and behaviors that I needed for sure. You're
Hmm.
very right on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you were doing financial services for 19 years.
Yes. So since 2004, so October of this year will be 20 years.
Wow.
Yes. Yes,
Wow.
girl.
So how did you transition from, or I guess, was it like a distinct decision that you had where you're like, okay, I'm not going to work two jobs anymore. I want to just do the financial planning, financial services full time. I guess, what was that transition moment like? What was going on?
I had a shift in my identity. That was 100% what happened. I could see myself full time in financial services now. I couldn't see myself in a waitressing uniform. To this day, I can't wear button shirts.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I can't wear a collared shirt with buttons. I can't wear it because that's what we always had to wear waitressing, right? So that's just what I feel like
Yeah.
in a collared shirt. And so that was what shifted was I had a shift in identity. I finally started to see how good I was is the truth. And I just didn't know that before.
Mm.
Yeah,
Would you say? Mm-hmm.
we had a new coach come in to do some what he called group coaching, my CEO at the time, and it really put in perspective how good I was at it. So that's what shifted it for me. I was like, I am good at this. I mean, they would be throwing numbers up on the board, and I would be like answering the numbers in my head. And what's funny is the reason why is because I realized through waitressing, as long as I switched in financial planning, whatever they were talking about, into dollars and cents, I could calculate it like that because in waitressing, we had to carry our own bank all the time. So I always had to give people money. So as long as I looked at it from that perspective, I was like, I am good at this. I really am. And so it really built my
Wow.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. You see, connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots.
You built that quick.
That's very true. And yeah. And I'm sure my friendliness from having to talk to people all day long helped in my financial planning as well.
That's true. That's
Mhm.
true. Interacting with
Yeah.
people, seeing their facial expressions and body
Yeah.
language. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I know a lot of times people too have a challenge with talking about life insurance, which is the foundation of financial planning. And I never had a challenge talking about life insurance because of having experienced death. So I think that that was another reason as well, that since I
Mm.
never felt uncomfortable talking about it, the people that I was with never felt uncomfortable because that's the reality of life. That's
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
people would always feel comfortable talking to me.
So when you say that you experienced death,
Mhm.
what year was that and what happened and how did that impact you?
So sorry, Jessica, we talked about me being a crier. Let's see. So my first one was I've had quite a bit. Um, I think it must have been well, it was in the 90s when my brother passed away. He was 19.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So that was the first. And so, excuse me, sorry, but I got to see what my dad and my stepmom went through. So that taught me a lot. And he did have, my brother did have, my dad had him on a group insurance plan through his job. So they had, money for the expenses, but I got to see how much they went through. It wasn't about money, but it was time. I got to see how they didn't have time to grieve. So that was one thing. Sorry.
Okay.
And then just a year later, I lost my mom.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, so that was a really tough time. Um, and I was her only child. So again, that was another learning experience to go through that. So,
Wow.
yeah, I felt like after that time that our family, it felt like we were just professional funeral attenders. It seemed like people were just passing left and right in our family. Um, so yeah, so I had just a lot of empathy when I was talking to people and just a lot of experience because I could look at it from different perspectives. I could look at it from the perspective of not having money to pay for a funeral and a perspective of having money to pay for a funeral. I was 23 when my mom died. I didn't have the money to pay for her funeral. She thought she had a life insurance policy. So I looked into it and she didn't. It was a policy through a bank. So it was like, well, what are all these different kinds of life insurance? Kind of got me curious. How is it these things work? And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I can always talk to people.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
What you said was so profound.
thank
And there's just, I'm like processing all the depth of what you went through and how it shaped your life. And basically your profession as in the financial services is personal.
you. Right. Definitely was. And being a single parent, I had to understand what I was doing and I was struggling. It was hard. I was struggling. It was definitely very hard, but I felt like I have to learn. I have to get it together or I'm going to struggle forever. And that wasn't an option. So
Wow. Wow. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Natalie.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a bit speechless because I can see how much their passing has impacted you, like, with grieving, like, how did you have support during that time? Like, were you carrying all of that burden on your own?
I wasn't. I mean, I had my stepmom and my sisters,
Mhm.
so we were all there for
Mhm.
each other. So that was great. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that was, we were very supportive to each other. We're very close because of that for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. It's like some of the thoughts that are crossing my mind. It's, in a way, your mom set you up for success without, like, realizing what she was doing. It's because she knew you so well. She took you to work with her
Mhm,
and inadvertently giving you the skills that you didn't even know that you needed at the time for later on in life.
mhm. That's good perspective. I never looked at it like that.
Hmm. Hmm. It's
I
it's
just loved that time with her.
yeah, 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 yeah. Of course, you're spending time with your mom, and she's also teaching you how to take care of yourself and help you become an adult and learn how to provide for yourself and, in a way, help other people
Mhm,
go, not go through what you went through too.
mhm. Yeah, definitely.
You're able
Definitely.
to change lives through your experiences.
Hmm. Yeah. And it makes a difference when people know that you can relate to them,
Hmm. Yeah, you're not selling.
especially in insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, you're not selling just to sell. You're selling insurance because, no, like, I went through this.
Yeah, it was funny. They would say that, like, they'd make fun of insurance salesmen. And I was like, I've never felt that way. You guys are so rude. I've never felt that way.
But you're selling with a purpose, You're not selling just because you want, some Rolex. You're selling because you went through so much.
Hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
how can I help other people not go through the same thing?
Yeah. And no one likes paying for insurance. I mean, the whole thing almost every single time is, I don't want to spend my money on that, but it doesn't get cheaper. Every day that we wait, the cost goes up. So you can, take what you don't want to pay now and pay that, or pay what you don't want to pay plus some in the future. You decide if you even qualify then, right? So, I mean, that's really the choices. And especially
Mm-hmm.
coming out of COVID, the insurance companies are very, very strict.
Mm.
They had to put out a lot of money. And so they're very, very strict with doctors' records and making sure that what people say is true. So
Wow. Yeah.
they're not easy to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I feel like it's
That's
represented
why I'm changing careers,
Florida.
Jessica. I was like, if I have to talk to these people one more time,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going postal over here.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, it's so funny because it's like we're paying money to the insurance companies so that they can pay.
Thank you. Thank you. We're trying to give you money. It's exactly what I tell them. I'm trying to give you money. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
exactly. Exactly. We give them money so they can pay us when we need it. But then they're like, oh, we paid you guys. Oh, well, we can't have you on our policy no more. I'm sorry. Like, what?
Yeah.
I've been paying you all these years. I've been paying you for like 10 years before making a claim. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah. Just ridiculous.
yeah, yeah.
Ridiculous. The insurance companies are definitely going to have to shift with the times for sure.
Yes. I'm in Florida. And
Oh,
Florida
okay, I
is
was wondering.
Florida's weird with the insurance, so yeah, I'm definitely with you on insurance reform.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, okay. So, how did you transition from your financial services and insurance? And that's, really, I would say that's really left brain, numbers and everything, policies, everything into your publishing company.
Well, I still had the habit and disciplines of being able to go to work for myself. So, that was already there. So that was easy. But I really wanted to spend this kind of what I'm calling my final act of having a career being creative. And I feel like even though in financial services it is numbers, you still are sometimes, well, I won't say sometimes, a lot of times having to be creative on strategy. A lot of
Mm,
times people think in financial services, it's kind of like, well, this does this, so that does that. But you can use different tools to do different things. There's still strategy behind things. So I did feel like I got to be creative in that aspect. But I really wanted this last chapter to be more fun and definitely more passive income. So as I'm transitioning, that is one thing that I do have on my side is I do have some passive income from my book of business. So the other part is I'm doing exactly what I tell not to people not to do, and it's I'm trusting it's gonna work out, which I would never have told any of my agents to do that. I'd be like, "Don't you quit your job until you replace your income." That's what would tell them. But I don't know that I'm. I have savings. I have some passive income. I am married, so I could, potentially cry on my husband for a little while if I had to. But no, I've been doing it. I've been doing it long enough. I feel like I'm okay. Um, yeah. And plus I'm in a very different season. We became empty nesters in December. So we're just in a different season where I can be a little more lax financially and even just with my schedule. So that's
So,
been wonderful.
what was the inspiration for wanting more creativity in your life?
You know, honestly, everyone always talks, I shouldn't say everyone, but you always hear, do what you love or pursue what you love. And although I would say I loved financial services. I would say that, but do I really love financial services? It's probably no. What I love about financial services is the money because it's large spread. So that large spread gives me more of my time back. That's always been kind of more of that. That even now as I'm transitioning, I've had to tell myself, Natalie, don't fall back. Don't fall back. It'd be easy to go, boop, okay, I just bought myself another month, but then I'm not focused on publishing, right? So yeah, that would be. I'm in position, but I feel like I have a time limit, so I gotta go. I gotta take action. Things are in place. I have 400 books on Amazon I have books selling daily on Amazon right now. And with that many books, it's like if I can't make money, then that's a challenge, right? That's, something that needs to be improved upon. So, yeah, I'm already in position. I just need to keep growing, going next level, learning more things, more marketing, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So with this transition from financial services into your publishing company, honestly, even 400 books on Amazon is a lot. Like when you first told me that number, I was like, oh wow, like like that's a lot. Like so, I guess what would be the pull? Is it really just the money aspect from the financial services versus starting your own publishing company, or?
The reason why I wouldn't want to start my publishing company.
No. So I guess what's keeping you kind of teetered, like thinking like,
Oh, I'm not being teetered right now.
okay, 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 okay,
I'm
okay.
in like
Yeah.
I'm not displaying it. I mean, my book of business, if you're there, if you need me, I'm here for you. I'm not just going to send you to a stranger who doesn't know you or your situation. Especially, I mean, some of these people I've known for 20 years, but I'm not actively
Okay.
seeing clients. Yeah, no, I'm all
Okay.
in everyday publishing.
Okay. So your
Yeah.
identity is fully shifted into
It's
publishing.
fully shifted into publishing. And a big part of what shifted that, I think, was obviously putting on 400 books obviously does that. But I feel like the biggest shift honestly happened when I did the children's books, because I really kind of started seeing myself as an author. Before, with the planners and the notebooks and the coloring books, it's like you don't have to really necessarily have to have, I don't want to say talent, but gotta have certain skills, right? But I didn't, but when I started the children's book, I really started having that shift with the children's books. Like, hey,
Mm.
I'm an author now. Like, I'm an
Mhm.
author. I have books. My name's on these books, and I illustrated them. So, yeah,
That's
you know,
amazing.
thank you. It wasn't easy. I worked really, really hard. And when you look at some of these, profit margins on things, you see all these times where they have these sponsors that just buy this resale book. And I think to myself, boy, that'd be easier, Natalie, instead of having to create this book. But it is part of the creative process. It's part of the story that goes into the book that gets me excited. I know I shared with you that, you know, all my stories have a person in them. And so it gets me excited to write a story about them, and they just love it. My nieces think I'm the coolest thing ever, and I love that. My baby sis, my 8-year-old niece, she started writing books. She's drawing pictures, and she's called me the other day because she wants to talk about us having a book signing when she publishes her book.
That's so cute. Oh my
Yes,
gosh, that's so cute.
yes. So I love it.
What was going on in your life when you finally said, I want to make a children's book?
Well, I hit the 1 year anniversary, and I felt like something that's very Mm, that shows up a lot for me is I get bored very easy. And I think that's one of the things that I like about publishing. There's kind of always something to do. And so I was like, okay, it's my year anniversary. Now, what do I want to do next? And so that's kind of what made me start doing the children's books.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that, again, there's that creativity, but there's always another way to take it, right? And so now I did I did the adult coloring book, which I had told you about, which has affirmations for women in it. Before, they were just like, princesses and unicorns and stuff like that. But I just feel like I can't get bored with it. There's always something to create, and there's always someone that wants something created for them, or they want help creating something. And so I love being part of that process. I feel like I never get bored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, like, I think what I want to pull out of you is, you spent so much time in your financial services, financial planning, and I'm assuming working a lot. Did you have, I guess, like, even with the illustrations, right? Like, what point in your life were you, let's say, drawing or coming up with stories? Or I guess, how did you basically say, how did you identify I have this talent and I'm going to run with it?
So from the Better Your Business show, working on the Better Your Business show. So my co-host Shanna and I, we couldn't be more. We're like the perfect match. I'm very. I'm gonna jump in the deep end. Let's go for it. I probably don't slow down enough, and she's very. Let's stop and look at the details. She's a writer, she blogs. And so we started doing stuff like that for the show. What got me started the creating aspect was making the reels and, the Instagram and Facebook photos, the YouTube thumbnails, doing stuff like that. And she would be writing our newsletters and stuff. And then when I had friends that would come out and comment on my social media posts, and those had gotten better because the truth of that is I had paid for social media to be done for about a year, maybe 13 months. And so when I went into that second year, I used a lot of the same content, but I expanded on it. I just made it a little bit more my own. So people would reach out to me. So then I started doing ebooks for some people. And so it's just kind of grown into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From my relationships. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started, was that relationship with her and the show. And then I was like, wait a minute, like this is fun.
Yeah.
And just having that dream, I always had this dream of when I was little, we talked about this a little bit, of when I was a little girl, I always my whole dream, and I would even post this on my social media. I wasn't a girl that thought about my Prince Charming and having the big wedding and all that stuff. My thing I always thought of was my huge house, which was like a Victorian style home. I'm pretty sure in my visions I had on like Bridgerton gowns or something. True story. But I had a floor, right? I had the library, floor to ceiling library, big fireplace. That is always what I thought about as a little girl. My sisters and I would talk about it at the dinner table. And so that's how we got the name of my company, the Three Lee Publishing. My dad would call us the Lee sisters. So ugly, lonely, and homely, he would tease us. So we named our company, my company, after him. But yeah, so that was always a dream of mine to get into publishing. And so now with COVID and then with connecting the dots of Joe sending me that author course, it came into fruition. And so even though it's very different, I thought this was always a dream of mine. I need to go for it.
Yeah.
So we're going in faith.
So like during your whole time of waitressing and working, financial services, transitioning fully into financial services, was that idea like always in the back of your head, or were there sometimes you just forgot about it?
I never thought about publishing ever. Never.
Wow.
Mm-mm. I mean, I really thought I'd be in financial services forever. That was the end game. For
Wow.
sure. I mean, it was why I was doing everything. The pandemic came, our office closed, we started working from home. If that hadn't happened, I'd probably still be running an organization. I would probably still be running an organization. And
Okay. Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm. No, that puts a lot of things into perspective, because I didn't like when you said financial services, I was just thinking you're working from home. So you're going into the office, going into the field every single day.
right. Training agents. And
Ah,
for me, for me, it was always about building a passive income. I've always wanted to be in charge of my time. So for me, it was really investing into my agents. It wasn't me going in the field as much. It was me teaching in them, investing in them, looking at their own finances, going over their, you didn't sell to this client. What was the appointment like? Why didn't you know what I mean? Stuff like that. I was putting a lot of just my heart and soul into developing people and helping them make money. Which hopefully those relationships will come full circle now. I loved and believed in you. So,
okay. That puts things, wow, that puts
yeah.
things in so much perspective.
I mean, if my assistant couldn't understand my style, I probably never would have been the one to make the debt journal. I never would have gotten into Canva and figured it out. That probably never would have happened because she took the course. I didn't.
Yeah.
But she just couldn't understand my style.
Yeah. Yeah. You had this dream with your sisters as a kid of publishing, said it, and then you forgot it. You went
Yeah.
about your life, and all the unexpected events that took place. Now you're living out your dream that you
Yeah.
forgot you had.
But I forgot I had. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, it's very interesting how life does that.
Yeah.
And I think part of the important thing of that transition too is it's something, and you hear everybody say this that have done anything, right? So I'm really holding my fingers on this because it's small profit margins if I'm publishing, right? But when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, and the money comes when we're doing what we love. And so I just want to stay true to that and keep creating, and then hope my passion will just deliver on that. And I know it will. I mean, it already has. I'm already doing better on Amazon than most people. So, I know I got to just keep going for it. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. The art of consistency.
Yes, definitely.
The art of consistency. I think I definitely, grew up in a household where there was a lot of those, you know, like, how do we make money right now type of thing, or I don't want to say get rich quick, but you kind of, sometimes you lose sight on
hmm
the impact of consistency.
hmm It's true. And it's hard to even see that when you're in struggle mode. To even
Ah.
see that you can have you can't see that stuff when all you see is struggle. Life's not that exciting when you're in struggle mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. That's one of the reasons I love to help people with their finances. If you get them out of that mode, it just changes everything for them.
It does.
It really does. Gives them just that a whole new life, really.
Yeah. Because when you're
So,
in struggle mode, you I don't want to say everything's kind of dreary, but it kind of
right.
is.
It kind of is. It's kind of like your Eeyore a little bit. I mean, that was one of the lessons I learned when my brother passed, because I can never. I'm a Tigger kind of girl, in case you couldn't tell. That's kind of more my personality. So when my brother passed, that was the first time ever I was like, I get Eeyore now. That was the first time. I was like, I get his character now. I never. I was like, what is this dude? Like, I could never understand. Now it's like, I get it, and that's a lot of people, which is sad.
It is. It
Hmm.
is sad. And that's the reason I even started this podcast, was because I see how much suffering and sadness, depression, anxiety, and everything that there is. And hearing your story, hearing the struggles that you went through, and you're like a living example of, going from struggling, single mom, working 80 hours to now, I don't know what your whole house looks like, but from your background, it looks beautiful.
Thank you.
You got married, you're pursuing your dream. And you also
Yes.
said you're an empty nester, so your kids are off doing their own thing,
Yes,
you know?
this is a blast. I mean, this is really, they call it your, I guess, your golden years for a reason, but we're definitely having a good time for sure. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you.
You're a living example. No, seriously, you're a living example of struggling, right? You're struggling, trying to provide, trying to make a living, into having the life that a lot of people aspire to.
Mhm. Yeah. And it was a lot of persistency for sure. I think you just really have to be clear on why you want your circumstances to change. I was really just thinking about my legacy more than anything. What was the legacy that I wanted to leave? Did I want to leave a legacy of struggle and small mindedness? Like, you look at some of these people that have grown up in homes that have different standards and expectation. It's not a, okay, well, you graduated high school, now go get your FAFSA and go to junior college, right? It's okay, well, you're 18 now, what kind of company or restaurant are you going to open? Some people have totally different standards, and that was normal for those kids. That's what they grew up around, so they don't see it any other way. And I just wanted to leave a legacy of not struggle, right? Of independence, of people that were free thinkers, made their own decisions, weren't relying on other people or the government, or, just free thinkers making their own decisions and really understanding their worth. So the value is us, right? That the value is us as people. I really want people to understand that.
And it's so crazy. Even thinking that you have value to do your own thing is scary. Like, at least for me, with trying to transition away from corporate and starting my own business, I'm like, can I really do this? You know?
Is it the same type of business? I mean, you're
Uh
already doing it, aren't
yeah,
you?
yeah. Exactly. But it's like the mindset that I had to do a lot of mental work to even have the confidence to say I have a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't feel that I could provide value
Mm,
at the
interesting.
time.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear that a lot from people, and one of the things that I've learned is, if you know something more, more than someone else, you're providing that value. Well, then, hey, right, you know more than they do. You're able to help them, and that's the value. So as long as you can deliver on that, we don't have to know it all. I think that I'm guilty of that, of really getting caught up of, I have to know it all first before I can be the expert. I mean, life's always changing. If we
Yeah.
knew everything, good Lord, we can never know it all anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's funny because
Exactly.
I'm a very jump in the deep end of the pool kind of girl. And it's had its good times and it's had its bad times, because I made some very bad decisions where I should have done some front leg work first. But the second time, that analytical side of me will just start really over processing all the information. And what if this happens or this? And it's like, there's a million of possibilities, Natalie. Just get in there. And if you don't like it, you don't have to stay. That's the beauty. And so I'd rather know now, but at the same time, I've made some of my worst decisions that way too. But so, yeah.
What makes you say like something was your worst decision?
Oh, that's a good question. It was almost like when it came out of my mouth, I shouldn't have said it to you. Okay, we'll call it some of my biggest learning lessons. Wait, look at this one. As my journal says, I win or I learn. and I'm not even sticking to it, right? But it's true. I mean, and you have to have those are really the shifts, right? Those biggest moments. Otherwise, we would never shift. I mean, Tony Robbins gives that example of the dog sitting on the nail, and he's just sitting on the rusty nail. It doesn't hurt enough for him to move, right? But so he's just sitting there, and it's the same thing, right? It's those were big learning experiences for me, for sure. Mm-hmm. And a big part of that was what I had shared with you about the legacy, was being a free thinker, and really just understanding kind of what's best for you. Almost going back to, I felt like I was living in a man's world, right? And I wish I would have done that different. Like you said, there was nothing better for me to know, really, right? But I just want to, I felt kind of taken advantage of by that. Mm-hmm. But now you've definitely shifted that for me. So I just want our kids to always be where they're feeling empowered, I guess. Or people really, that we have a voice,
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really, really good. And that's a good message also to leave for your kids, I think like for me growing up, the message I heard was, you kind of touched on it, right? Get good grades in school, get a job. Actually, it was become a doctor. That was mine. Become a doctor. Just follow the path, but not necessarily be empowered.
Right. Exactly. And there's a difference. And not everybody recognizes that. So that's a big deal. Yeah. I'm very excited to follow your journey with your new business.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been heads down on building and learning. There's a lot of learning, since February.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so 4 months.
Yeah. So I can't believe it's been 4 months. It feels so much longer. It's been so much longer. Feels like it. At least for me, coming from corporate to, starting my business, there is the assumption that I had was, I was really good at my job. Project management, really good at my job. I'm going to turn this into a business. No big deal. Oh my God. I never touched sales ever in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the assumption, I'm like, I'll just do some Google ads. No big deal.
Yeah. They'll come rolling in. Yeah.
So it's definitely been, the identity shift. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. While also propping myself up and, building that confidence and, I guess I would say fully shifting into, I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur,
Well, and that's cool that your husband is an entrepreneur, because then it's you have that support. Like my husband's, he owns his own business. He's had his own business 30 years, and he's more conservative, more by nature. We're on more of the free spirit. So it's like we would never have any fun if it wasn't for me. So he just lets me do my thing, right? We've been together 13 years, right? He lets me do my things. I'm the fun side of us. But he understands my need for that. So it's like as you're going through your valleys, at least you have someone who's experienced them and can relate to what you're going through, instead of it being, I can't relate at all.
Yes. Yeah.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's also interesting because, like, so my husband, he's a classically trained pianist.
Oh,
And so,
cool.
yeah.
I love
That's a whole other story of itself. But with that, you have two careers. You either are a concert pianist or you're a teacher. And so my husband, he didn't want to dedicate all that time to just practicing. He wanted to have, a life. And so he was a teacher. So, but you have that entrepreneur where you have to find your students.
that. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you have to find your students.
Mm.
So with my husband, it was actually interesting because he moved from New York down to Florida for me. And so he had to start from scratch. All right.
Wow. So was he like Carnegie Hall stuff in New York, and then he came to
Yeah.
Florida?
Yeah. He
He
performed.
was. That's cool.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah. He performed on Carnegie
He
Hall. And
loves you, girl.
then he does. Even when starting up my podcast, like he set me up for success. Like I love him so much, girl.
Oh,
Oh my god, you're gonna make me blush on camera.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so for him, like he had that skill of being able to find students. So
right.
so he did do that, but with actually starting up a school, a music school, there was definitely that learning curve where it's like,
Mm,
okay, I have to manage other people.
right.
What
Yeah.
does that look like to manage other people?
Yeah.
And then managing the relationship with the parents because it's not like he's teaching the students anymore. He has other people teaching the students,
Oh, right.
so there's that whole dynamic. And then it's like, oh, I have to build a culture,
Oh,
So it's like, it's funny because with him starting his school, I was able to help on certain aspects, like, doing like financial analytics because that's what I did, for some of my career, doing a lot of analytics. So, setting, doing cost analysis and trend analysis and that type of thing, supporting him in that way.
nice.
And then even with some ideas for culture building, just pulling from my corporate experience, like,
Mm,
okay, this is what I saw they did, this is what worked.
mm,
Communications, drawing from my project management experience, I'm like, okay, how do the parents know that you have these things going on? How far in advance are you? So there's those type of things I helped support him on that I was able to pull from my corporate experience.
yeah.
Yeah, but then
That's
he's helping
awesome.
me. Yeah. So he's helping me now with like, okay, like what's your SEO? Like let's look at your SEO. Let's look at how you're doing Google Ads. Like let's look at, some of that other, entrepreneur stuff that he had to
Yeah.
learn with starting the school. So it's been a really nice journey. I feel like it's been also strengthening like our marriage and from like a business and career type of standpoint where before it was kind of separate.
Right.
And so now we're like kind of growing together in that aspect. So it's been interesting. It's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My husband and I in the about I was probably about 8 years into my career because he does coaching. We kind of were doing some overlapping. It just didn't work out well for us. Um, I think I'm just too, A type personality. Just didn't work out well for us. But on the publishing side, I've been able to experience that, and so I know what you mean. It's been really I don't need the word cheese. I want to say like lovely. I just can't explain it, but it's been very nice to just work on create with him and not argue about it. Right?
Yeah.
I have a final result, and it's just like, yay, we did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I love publishing too, because I feel like we can kind of be on the same page there, and it's
Would you
it's
say with
fun.
you and your publishing, would you say that you finally feel like yourself?
I would say definitely so. I'd say that was probably one of my biggest things in financial services that I never understood was why there was a part of me that just never really felt congruent. And that's when I mean, it took me way too long, probably 18 years to realize it was because it wasn't the financial services that I loved. It was the money that I was able to make and have control of my time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I loved. I loved the profit margins. I do love helping people, but there's lots of ways you can help people. I chose financial services because of the profit margins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not doing that with publishing. That's for sure. Publishing is sheer volume.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of volume, so I believe you. You're gonna do it real quick. You'll get the book you're looking for.
Well,
So
my husband's 15 years older than me. And so, I feel like I need to have an early retirement. And so I just really want to have that passive income where I want it to be. So I'm just having a good time.
I'm rooting for you because I want that
Thank
early
you.
retirement too. Like,
Yes.
I think I was having a conversation with my dad where for him, he wakes up every single day, probably for the last 35 years at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm. Does he like it though?
Not waking up 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
He
Well,
loves
that's
his
good.
profession, but not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so he's at the point where he's looking forward towards retirement now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so he's in his mid 60s. And it's just interesting how times have changed where now we are able to have possibilities of retiring early. Because to him,
Yes.
I was telling him, I'm like, oh my God, I never wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like that's just not my reality.
Yes.
And I feel like we're in a fortunate time where we could do so much remote.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so much easier for us, for sure. For sure. Yes.
And you
You
have
don't
the
have to be
possibility of
married to a
retiring.
job.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have the possibility of really retiring early. It's not just some
Yeah.
wishy-washy statement. You can actually do it.
Yes. So it's exciting. And my husband and I were very active in our church. So that's really just where things will progress into just us, spending more time in that area, which is what we want. So that's why I said I'm just having faith. I really believe that, like you said, things happen the way they do for a reason. This came into my lap, and so I'm going with it. And all the doors are opening. And I think there's, when you're in alignment with what you feel like you should be doing, and when you're in alignment, with your mind and your emotions with what you're doing, it's just a different message that you're sending out to the world. Anyways, there's not that incongruency. People are just feeling your vibe differently, and it shows up for you. So
Mhm.
you're going to attract the things that you need just from that.
Yeah. And do you find that it happens easier?
Definitely. Oh my gosh, definitely. Definitely, definitely. I really feel that when we're having resistance in an area, that should really tell us something. That should be real big feedback for us, especially if you're having resistance for a long period of time. I think the question should be, why am I having resistance to that? If I would have paid more attention to that, um, I would have had my realization sooner. I don't know that I would have shifted sooner, but I would have had that realization sooner for sure.
Mm.
That's why I was doing it. And that's why I was never going to hit my goals that I wanted to hit because I never was going to love that enough there.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
never going to happen for me. It would never look the way I wanted it to work. I would never have true freedom the way that I want it. And so why would I go for it? Subconsciously, I won't. So why am I showing up?
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
I definitely wasn't showing up for the right reasons. Maybe for the people more around me than myself.
Ah,
Hmm.
that's a really good statement.
Hmm.
You're showing
Yeah,
up
that
for the
was the biggest
people around you instead of yourself.
thing.
How are you able to identify that?
Not being happy, there's only so much unhappiness. Why are people unhappy? It's usually because we're doing things we don't want to do. Right? So why are we doing things we don't want to do? And so part of it's becoming aware that I have that pattern. I used to say I was like a professional people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser. I'm over that now, but it's, awareness is the first step to change. Okay, I realized that I grieved that part of me. And okay, how do I get better at setting boundaries and staying true to who I am and what I want? Because this is my life. This is our lives, right? We only get one shot at this thing. So we have to think about that. Something that's really important. I think part of my mission, a lot of what was going on with me at that time was a lot of self-love stuff. And I say that because when I look back at my journals, probably a third, if not more of them have love in them somewhere. or gratitude. Love and gratitude is on there somewhere. So I think that was a lot of my journey then, was that
So practicing self-love.
practicing self-love. Yeah. I mean, how many people go to birthday parties on Saturdays they don't want to?
Yeah.
You know? Nobody liked me for a little while after that, but I felt great. Which most people would rather be liked, right? But
Yeah.
I had to decide that I was okay with not being liked by everybody. That
Yeah.
was okay.
Oh my gosh, Natalie. I think I told my husband that today. I'm like, I need to be okay with people not liking me.
It's hard.
It is hard
Hmm.
because, to your point, there's so many subtle behaviors that you do
Hmm.
to make other people
Yes.
happy,
Hmm.
but then it's costing you
Right.
yourself. Literally,
Hmm.
your body, yourself, your mental, your emotions, everything. It's literally costing you.
Yeah. And then as you shift, you have to deal with everyone around you not liking that you're shifting.
Mm. It's disruptive.
Right? All the people that love you are like, what's going on? So relationships will change or if not fall away, right? So, but that's just the evolution of life. I think that if we're not growing, we're dying. And so you have to just make the right decisions for you to grow,
Mhm.
and just trust that things will work out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that the relationships fall away, but then at the same time, it's like you're so happy on the inside. It's not that you don't care about the relationships, but there's less of a void.
right. Yes. True. Definitely so.
Hmm.
You're just more comfortable in your own skin, I think, too.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was literally sitting outside today eating a banana, and I'm like, wow, I'm so happy. Life's amazing. I'm just sitting out here eating a banana, you know?
Yes.
Versus when I'm in survival mode, I'm like, okay, let me just stand outside so I don't lose my crap and flip off on someone during work. I've come a long way. I don't, I'm not coming outside so I don't curse somebody out. I'm coming outside to appreciate the wind blowing on my
Mm,
skin.
yes, girl. Yes, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because, we all hope for the people that we have relationships with. We always hope for the best for them. We always hope that they're happy, and we always hope that, things are going good. So I like, at least for me, like I find it interesting. I'm like, I've wanted nothing but happiness for you. Why is our relationship shifting? Why can't I get the same from you?
Right.
So it also puts, certain things in perspective, and it also
Yes.
emphasizes the importance of self-love.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So if you could give someone your top 3 pieces of advice for transitioning from one space to another, or maybe, pursuing happiness, what would it be?
So be clear on what you want, I think is the first thing. A lot of people don't know what they want. I think a lot of it too, even when it comes to picking your career job, I don't think me saying that I picked that because of money is uncommon. I think that's a very common for thing. Most people aren't doing what they love because they love it. So get clear on what you want to look like. And I think too, breaking that down into what that looks like for you financially is important, because a lot of times we think it costs more than it does. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with couples that really thought they weren't going to be able to retire. I was like, well, we can retire you tomorrow if you want to. So just break it down on what you want it to look like. It's not as expensive as you think, and it's not as hard as you think. Number 2 would be believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. That doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. That doesn't mean there's not going to be setbacks. But if you don't believe in yourself, why should your husband or your kids or anybody else? You have to believe in yourself. And then thirdly, I would say be consistent. If you want cash flow, you need to consistently show up. You can have cash flow or cash spurts if you want cash flow. Consistently show up and be persistent on what you want, because if you consistently show up, you're going to get it. I'm a firm believer in that. You're going to get something.
That's true. That is true. That is true.
You're going to win or you're going to learn.
Or get it, or even get a diversion, like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my goodness. And where can people find you, Natalie?
So I'm on all social media platforms. Natalie Essman, CEO, is my handle on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. The Better Your Business Show, we're on all top platforms. If you want to check out our show, Jessica will be on it in the near future, so you guys can see her on there too. And then also, right now, all my books and journals are on Amazon, so you can put my name in and all sorts of goodies will come up. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Natalie. Like,
Thank
this was
you so
perfect
much.
messaging for me, at least, like selfishly. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.